Let me bring up my decorative quilter. This is the way your screen looks when you bring it up if you're online. And we've already decided to create a new design, so I can just close that window. And we have our design screen open. Now, foundation piecing goes by a lot of different names. I love foundation piecing in the hoop because it makes your points perfect, your seams are perfect, and it's really a very easy and fun way to do complicated blocks or to do simple blocks if you're not used to quilting. So it has a lot of different ways to use it. So my goal in this webinar is to explain to you how to approach different blocks and do it with foundation piecing. Now, paper piecing is a term that we don't really use with Floriani because we don't want you sewing on paper. We can hoop stabilizer and stitch directly on that. Stitch and wash is one of my favorite stabilizers to use for foundation piecing because it's half water soluble and half tear away. After I finish putting my whole quilt together, and you know, the first time I spill coffee on it, and wash the quilt, then everything that's water soluble in the stabilizer goes away, but it leaves some fibers there to support my threads and my designs and stitching. So that's a great stabilizer for that. Or you can stitch on no-show nylon mesh, or you can stitch on fabric if you choose, and then just add the fabric on top. I'm giving you a lot of options on this because you do have a lot of options. And we can explore some of those later in lessons, but let's get into exactly what my decorative quilter can do for you and how you can create piecing in the hoop on your own for foundation piecing. We have a new screen here, and we'll show our grid to start off with. I'm going to bring up a foundation, not that one, a foundation piecing design. I was playing around. Let me open up a new block here. Okay, bring up a backdrop, and this one is a very simple, the square and a square is a very simple foundation piecing block. Now, one of the things you will notice with foundation piecing, if you have purchased a pattern, and of course if you purchased a pattern you can always take a photograph or scan it and bring it up as a backdrop so you can use this technique with it. You don't have to print copies on paper and stitch it on paper and tear away the paper and have all of that paper mess from it. So here we have a block, and the first thing I want to do when I bring it up is, because I'm not sure, if I look over here at my backdrop size, and I pulled my backdrop up from over here, and I can pull up a picture from anywhere on my computer, but I pull up my backdrop, and my width is 6.83 inches by 6.82. Well, that is actually the whole width of this picture. I don't know what that means as far as what my finished block size should be, which is this solid line right here. First thing I want to do is make sure that it's straight, because it looks like it's just a tear off since I have my grid up. So I'm going to click right beneath over here the backdrop tool and select to define my horizon. My horizon is any straight horizontal line in my picture. So if I have something really crooked, I can straighten it up. If I have something that's just a little off, I still want to try and straighten that up. So I'm going to scroll in here so I can see it a little better. And I want to make sure, see how this is just a hair off. I'm going to set my cursor right here, and then while I'm holding my mouse key down, I drag it to the other side and say, very carefully, this should be my horizontal line. Now, if you look at it against the grid, it looks much straighter. Well, a little straighter. But now I want to get rid of my grid because I like it out of my way when I'm working in my decorative quilter. The next thing I want to do, as far as my backdrop is concerned, is to define the scale. I don't know what size my finished block in this picture actually is. So I can take this measurement anywhere I want to. If I want it to be finished at a certain diagonal, I can use that measurement. But in this case, I'm just going to go from one side of the finished block to the other and let go. And it says that my initial length is 5.99 inches. I want to make this block as big as I can fit into my 200 millimeter by 200 millimeter hoop, which I happen to know is not exactly 8 inches. It's more like 7.85, but I'm just going to make it 7.5 to be simple. And I enter my requested length right here. That's how big I want my backdrop to be now, and click OK. And it resizes it for me. To bring the whole backdrop back into view, I double click on my zoom tool, and I'm back where I can see the whole picture. Now, if you'll notice, on this block there are numbers. The numbers are the sequence in which the fabric is laid down in the hoop. If you have never done foundation piecing before, or piecing in the hoop, or paper piecing, I recommend that you look at some tutorials, especially the video ones. There's many of them on YouTube. You can go to different websites and just see how they're done. Once you get the idea of how it's done, it's very easy to adapt patterns that you have and want to use to foundation piecing. But let's start out with one that's numbered, like this one. So the first thing I'm going to do is lay down a square of fabric right here in the center. And then I'm going to add a piece of fabric. I will have it folded over so that my angle is like this, and it will stitch across this line. And then I will flip it back, and I'll have a point. And actually a pretty perfect point by the time I'm done, which is one of the beauties of foundation piecing. So in order to create stitches in our block, let's start with patch number 1. And I will come up here, and really the easiest thing, because it is a square, I'm just going to select my rectangle tool because I want to stitch the whole thing down because I can. I won't necessarily always do that, but with this one I will, and I'll explain the difference later. So I make it the size of that square, and I let go. And if I dismiss my backdrop by clicking over here on the left-hand side, my backdrop image, I can see I have a perfect square on my screen. Okay? It's still artwork at this point, so just hang with me. We'll convert it to stitches as we go. Actually, we'll go ahead and convert that one to stitches because the next ones we'll do as stitches. Excuse me. So if I select it and I simply come up here to all the different stitches I can convert to, I will say convert that to a run stitch. And now if I look over here on the right hand side, you can see it's a run. And it's 3 millimeters long, standard run stitch, and that's just perfect for what I want to do. Now, because I want the machine to stop in between every time I stitch, I'm going to change my color at this point by coming down at the bottom on the left and right-clicking on color number 2 because I want to force the machine stop there. Now, I can just work with the run stitch. Up here in the top, these are our 2 places where we can actually create stitches. I can create a run stitch, or I can create artwork. From that, especially artwork, then I can convert it to anything else. But right now, I'm going to create runs. So I select the run stitch, and let's zoom in a little bit so I'm very clear on my screen, and I will left click on one corner and left click on the second corner and then right click to set that stitch. Let me show you how that works. Yeah, I'm a little bit off, so I can adjust that if I want to. But for this part, if I wasn't over the other stitches, it would be a problem, but that is such a minuscule amount I'm off, it'll be fine. And so now I have a run stitch here. My second color is a run, and that's color number 2. So what happens is I have laid down a square in color number 1. Then I take a triangle of fabric that is larger than color number 2 and lay it face down on color 1 and stitch right across here. And then I will flip that fabric up, and that creates my triangle. So if you want to create a pattern, just print out your patterns, cut them apart, and cut your fabrics about 1/4 of an inch larger than each of these numbers. So each of these triangles, like number 2, that would be a pattern. And this is a very simple pattern, and you really only have 3 shapes. You have number 1, which is a square. 2, 3, 4, and 5 are all triangles that are the same size. And then 6, 7, 8, and 9 are also triangles that are the same size. So you could easily print that as a template, an actual size, cut it apart, and cut your fabrics. All right, so we have 1 done. And then we put down 2 and we fold it up immediately. Now, do you need to press it between colors? You can. I like to finger press it or use one of those wooden tools that kind of help you smooth it out. But I do like to have it smoothed out. You could use, if you really want to, a craft iron and just keep it in the hoop. I don't recommend taking your hoop off of the machine because that just gives you opportunity for problems if anything pops out. Okay, so we've got 1, we've got 2. Now let's just follow it on around. It's very simple. I'm going to select my run stitch again. I'm going to change my color to color number 3. Come in, zoom in with, hang on. Okay, so I'm going to, let me click to go in. There we go. Back to select, get my thread, my run stitch, and now I'm going to click right here and right here and right click at the end, and I have color number 3. If we look at it in 3D, you can kind of see that one's green. Let's bring our picture back up and finish off this block. This is the easiest digitizing you will ever do. So you can tell somebody, yes, I digitized that. Change your color. One of the things that I really like about the Floriani software is it's very forgiving, including my decorative quilter, so that if I get to change my color, it's okay. I can always go back and redo that later. But I'm trying to teach you the right way to do it. So we've just done color number 4. Now we're going to do color number 5. So I've clicked there. Let me scooch it up a bit. And I left click there. And I right clicked in that stitch. Now if we pull out a little bit, I'm going to change by right clicking on color number 6 down here at the bottom. And then I come up to where 6 is. I want to cover this line. So I hope you can see we're building this block piece by piece. And right click, change color, click on our stitch, click on our corner, click here. These are all left clicks. Then right click to set it, change color again, and really, I'm going to tell you right now, it doesn't matter if I start from here and go to this side, or if I start over here and go to here. It really doesn't make a difference in this process. I just need this run stitch between block number 8 and blocks number 4 and 5. And that one's set. And then we can go back to color 1 because I've run out of colors, or I could add colors. It makes no difference. And I'm going to click from on 9, and I'm just creating run stitches. Okay, so now I have all of my patches sewn down and flipped out, so I flip them as I go. Then the next thing I want to do is make sure that they all stay put. So I'm going to go back up to my artwork tool because I'm better at a rectangle when I'm using that than I am if I just go from point to point. And I'm just going to drag a rectangle around the whole thing. Oh, and I left that in color number 2. So let's select it. I mean, in 1. So let's select it and make it color number 2. So it's a different color than the step before it. You see over here, all of our colors are different. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then we start over 1 and 2. And this is still artwork, so I need to select it and change it to a run stitch in my convert stitches over here. I just will click on run, and now I have my block done. Now, there's a couple of things I could do at this point. If I really, I could digitize this dashed line and make it a run stitch as well, and then I know that is my trim line. That is exactly 1/4 of an inch on this design, and that's my seam allowance. I could just measure that with a ruler and rotary cutter and cut it off, whichever way you want to do that. But now, if we dismiss the picture, you will see how this design works. If we do a slow redraw, I'm going to go through the square in the center. So I've laid a piece of fabric down. Let's do this a little bit slower. Hang on, stop. Let's do it this way. I'm just going to collapse all of these, or hide all of these, and we'll go through them one at a time. There's our square in the center. So I've laid down a piece of fabric, stitched my square. The next one is going from 1 to 2. The next line goes from 1 to 3. Then I'm going to do the triangle at the bottom. Then I'm doing the triangle to the left. My next stitch will start on the diagonal because I already have this triangle done and this triangle done. So this is going to finish out my square. And then my next one, my next one, my next one. Now at this point, before you stitch this final square, one thing that I would really like to recommend to you is that you cover this at this point with water-soluble topper and, you know, pin it down or use our new embroidery perfection tape to hold it down to stitch this square, because every one of these folds, they may be going different ways, and it is an opportunity for your foot to catch on the fabric and turn it backwards. If you just do this with water-soluble topper, then you can tear it away and go back and decorate the rest of your block. You don't necessarily have to leave it on there, especially if you were using fabrics that you don't want to get wet, like velvet or suede or, you know, whatever. It's not something that you're going to wash. Then tear it off. But it's really helpful, and I learned that one the hard way, to put the water-soluble topper over it before you stitch that. So that's a very simple block. The same thing could be done with a snowball block, lots of different blocks. So let's take it a step further now. Let's go into our, first we'll create a new page and open a block, select a block from our catalog. Now in here I have actually foundation blocks, and there are several categories under those, including trees. And since for those of you who are overachievers and are already working on your Christmas gifts for this year, why don't we select one of the Christmas trees and let's learn to read how to put this together. So I'll select this tree here and bring it in. Now I could have selected what size it was before I said bring it in from the catalog block, and I didn't, so I will do it at this point and say, oh, it's 8 inches. Let's make it 6. And it will change that proportionally for me over here in Transform and Apply. Okay, so now I have to look at this block and decide how I'm going to put it together. What you want to look at, and this is why I recommend that you go to the internet and look up paper piecing and see how it's done in different ways if you've never done it. If you've done it, you probably get this already. Here would be my first block. Actually, I could do any one of these 3 across the bottom first, but I'll do the stem, and then I'll do this side over here, and then I'll do this side over here. Then I'll start with the tree and work my way up, because this one, The bottom green on here covers all three of those blocks. And if I work my way up the tree, this one covers that block. This next green piece covers the white block. This next one covers the green block. And then I would do either side, and really it doesn't matter which side you do first. Now, since this is artwork on our screen, rather than a backdrop that we have to draw over, we can do it a little bit differently. It doesn't have the numbers for us, but we can select the whole thing and convert it to a run stitch. All right. Now, let's change that. You're not going to see all of it really because my background, part of those were white. Let me put a darker background on here so you can see. So you see it really did convert all of them to run stitches. And if I look over here, you see run stitches. Okay. But this isn't what we need yet. I'm going to select everything by dragging a box around it. I could also do Control A. And I'm going to combine. This is what I'm going to do first. And it will make them all one color. Now let's go back to just a regular color screen. So I like to do this when I've got odd size pieces that I'm not going to really be able to measure ahead of time. If I put this down, if I hoop my stabilizer and I put a piece of batting, floating it in my hoop, and stitch this all together, then it shows me kind of where I'm going and how big my pieces need to be. I can lay them down over, say, this patch and figure out how big it needs to be, and this one, and so forth. But this is just like the outline. So we still have to create the stitches. Now, I'm going to lock that so nothing moves. If you look over here in your sequence view on the right-hand side, see right here, I've locked it. That means I can't move any of that. Now I can start creating my stitches. And I'm going to start with color number 1. And on this block right here, let's zoom in a little bit, I'm going to select my run stitch up here from the stitches that the stitch I can create or artwork. I'm just going to make it a run stitch. And I'll pick one side, and really it makes no difference which side comes first, and start a run stitch there, and there, and right click. Change my color. Then, so that means I've laid my square down in here, and I've laid this rectangle face down on it and stitched across. You're going to leave like a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance there, and then you flip it over and finger press it however you want to do that. Next, I'm going to do this side. So I've got my sky there that's behind my stem, right, or left click, right click, and that one's a different color, so my machine will stop. Change my color again. Oops, I clicked the wrong way. Right click on your color down at the bottom here to change it. Then, and honestly, when you stitch this, you're probably never going to change colors. It's just to force a machine stop on any machine out there. Well, I think on any machine, and I will be corrected by that, I'm sure, if I'm wrong. Okay, so so I put my third color in. Then on color number 4, I'm going to do the next line up. And if you print these out and you number them before you start this process, it'll be very easy for you to do because you can see how you want to put it together. Now I'm building my tree, and this could be in really cute Christmas fabric to make a whole quilt or even Christmas pot holders. Oh, no, they're planned, so it would be a Christmas trivet. Pot holders are when you make the wrong size block. A trivet is when you plan it. Now I'm going to click here, left click, right click to set it. Keep moving up my tree. Oh, now my tree is built. I just added this last piece at the top, so I just have 2 more lines to go which will be on the sides. I'm going to click on color number 7 and start down here. The thing I fell in love with foundation piecing is it's very easy to have perfect points. And you don't have to tell anybody you did it in your embroidery machine. And then I'm going to do the last side here. Click. And oops, let's scroll up a little bit. And left click again, then right click. All right, so now I have all of my tree. Let's look at it in 3D. All right, so you see we started here, did this side, this, and this. Now the black here is from our original pattern that we stitched onto our batting and stabilizer. So I do want to create a rectangle to hold down all of my fabric so that I can trim them. So I select my rectangle artwork. I could do it with a run stitch and go around each corner, but mine never seem to come out straight when I do that. So I'll use my artwork tool and then select that. Oop, I didn't change the color. Let's select just that over here in our sequence view and change the color and convert that up here to a run stitch. And there you go. You've got your tree. Now, some of you may be thinking, could I fill in these areas with stitches? Absolutely. Absolutely you could. You could even bring that, you could have, let's see if we can do that. Oh no, I changed the size on it. If you didn't change the size, you could bring that artwork up as a backdrop, use your magic wand, and convert it to stitches very simply. So now we have a tree. Let's do something a little different. I'm going to open up a new page, and I'm going to go back to my block library because it's a great resource. And I want to go to Classic Stars, and the star I'm going to select is called Double Star 2. Sometimes when you do foundation piecing, you can't do it all at the same time. For example, here's a great way, it's a really nice pieced block, and you could certainly, piece it by hand. But if you have an embroidery machine, why would you want to do that? Again, I should probably resize this before I bring it up, but we'll just leave it 8 inches. And I'm going to look and analyze this. If I look here, I can see I've got a block. This one covers the whole line of that one. This one covers this line. If I put the blue on after it, it's going to cover up the raw edges of that. But that is as far as I can go. All right, no problem. I'm going to take this, select just those pieces, and pull them out. Now, here's the interesting thing. I have 4 of those. If I rotate that, you will see all 4 of these are the exact same pieces. Now, I can't do it all in one setting, but I certainly could do it directly onto, say, Stitch and Wash Stabilizer, because all of the water-soluble portion goes away once the quilt's washed, and it will hold those bias edges while I'm putting the block together, and I can do this in pieces. This is something that's very frequently done. I could even come back and put them together with this little block in the end. But let's just look at the pieces for right now. I really only need to do, I'm deleting one of them. Okay, so if we scroll in on that or zoom in on it, let's create this one. So I'm going to select, since it's artwork, I can select everything, just like we did with our other block. Select everything and convert that to a run stitch. since it's already artwork, we use one of our convert to properties here. So I'm going to convert it to a run and combine it because they're all different colors. It would actually outline each one of those blocks, but that's not what I want it to do. I want it to be one run stitch. So now I have my pattern, and I will go back in just like we did with the tree. Let's zoom in on this a little bit. And I can select, this will be the first piece I put down. I've stitched this onto my stitch and wash that I've hooped. Or I could also do this, not just with stitch and wash, I could do it with Wet and Gone stabilizer that you use for standalone lace, hoop that, stitch it, and then when this gets washed, everything's gone. So if you're doing something that's really lightweight, that might be a better choice. But now I'm going to come and select my run stitch up here in my creation tools at the top. I'm going to change the color, and I'm going to stitch from here. I left click there, left click here, and there you go. All right, so I've stitched my triangle that's right here down to my block. I flip that over. My next stitch is going to be the other triangle, the other small triangle. So I'm going to go from here to here with a different color. So right or left with a right to set. It's easier to see in 3D. There we go. So I've stitched this one, then this one. Now I'm going to fold this one back over the top, change my color, and stitch it. Click, and left click again. Right click to set it, and there you go. Then I want to stitch them all down. So I'm going to, again, select my rectangle and pull that out. And again, I didn't change my color. So let's, oh, that's a different artwork. Okay, so we'll select the last one and change that one to color number 5 so it's a different color. All right. Now, I still have my little square left out here, which, you know, I may just stitch that, put some fabric in there and stitch around it so I know exactly how big to make it, or I can measure it. But when I go to, I'm going to delete it for right now. When I go to hoop these, if I'm going to create a lot of these, let me just delete that. I can, let's group it. Group, not group, there we go, group. And I can just select, copy, and paste. So now I have 2 of them. And I want to make sure I leave enough room for my seam allowance between them. And I also want to see, let's see how big this actually is. This is 5 inches wide by almost 3 inches high. So if I'm going to put these in a hoop, and I've got a 8 by 10 hoop, look how many we can fit in there by just selecting our hoop. Let's say it's a 300 by 200 hoop. I'll apply that, or I could apply it the other way, rotate it 90 degrees, and say OK. Now, let's see how many we can fit in there. I'm going to move this one up here, and I'll take this one and move it here, give it a little space in between for our seam allowance. And let's copy that by right-clicking, right-click, paste, or however you choose to do it, and put another one here. So I could probably get about 3 of them in there with seam allowances, which is fine, and I could just stitch those all day long. I could even go back and resequence those by color. And, whoops, let's do that. I'm going to select all by using Control-A. And first I want to ungroup them, and then, oops, sorry, resequence by color here. So then I can do all of these at one time. And it's very fast. What I neglected to do was change my last outline into stitches. Let me do that here. And there we go. Okay, so if we do a slow redraw on this, you're going to see we go through and it stitches our placement for all of them. Then it comes back up, it stitches between number 1 and number 2 on all of them, then between number 3, then 4, then around the perimeter. So I could make very quick work of doing multiples of these pieces in one hooping and then combine them, stitch them together with my sewing machine in the end and have blocks made in no time. And I don't have to ever deal with those bias edges. So that's another method of playing with your hooping. Now you'll notice here too, I was going to show you, I've got a lot of extra room left. If this is on stabilizer, I'm going to make a great big piece of it, and then I'm just going to hoop. My next hooping will be just, you know, right next to that, and so I'm going to have a long strip of those that I can work with and then go back and trim. So it'll be very easy. All right, let's look at another way that we can do piecing in the hoop. And I'm going to create a new file, and let's open up another kind of block. And this time I'm not going to go to our foundation blocks. I'm going to go to log cabins and pineapples. Most of these can be done in the hoop with foundation piecing. And your foundation, again, can be fabric, it can be stabilizer, it can be on batting or not on batting. It just depends on how you want to do it. All of these can be done with foundation piecing. And once you start playing with the puzzle, it gets really fun. This one could all be done in one hooping. This one could. If you go through this one right here, Fish in a Dish, which is actually a really cute block, would have to be done in 2 hoopings because there's no way to get all of the raw edges covered except by stitching this triangle to this triangle. But you would start from here and then build your way out and work up to this center. But log cabins are very easy to do. Courthouse steps, any of these, if you see, you just build one onto the other. So let's take one and do that. Well, I haven't looked at that one yet. That one's a little more complicated too. We'll figure that one out. Let's start with, well, let's do this quarter pineapple. And we'll do it 8 by 8 and bring it in. So very simply again, I have my whole block and I'm going to convert it to a run stitch. Now up here is the one that I do by hand or digitize. I draw those run stitches. If I have shapes in artwork, I can convert to a run stitch by just clicking right here. And now I've got my shape. It's different colors, so let's select everything by either doing Control A or dragging a box around it. And when I combine it, it makes it into one color. Eventually. There we go. So now, let's look at it in 3D. So now I have my pattern, if you will. And we're going to start at this corner and work our way through. But another thing we can do is with, we have another option here that we can actually put, we can actually create a backdrop of our original pattern, okay? And I'll show you what that'll do for us in a minute. I'm going to start with this corner down here. And since I've already got all of my outline, and I can dismiss looking at that if I want to, I'm going to change the color to color number 2 and pick up my run stitch up at the top that I create, not convert. So pick that up and we'll do from 1 to 2 and click. Now, we've just created this little square here. So now if I go from, with my, changing my color, sorry, my mouse was going crazy there. I can do this side and create this block or this patch and change my color again and create the patch that goes right here, stitch it down, and then I flip it back. Then my next one, again changing color, I come in and click from here to here, and we're done. Then we do the side triangles, change it to a different color, left click, right click to set it. You could keep clicking as long as you want to until you right click. It doesn't set, oops, sorry, I left clicked. It doesn't set those stitches. So left click, right click sets the stitches. Now color number 8, which again I need to right click on to pick it up. I'm going to start in the corner. Now you can go in and change those colors to anything you want to, but it really doesn't matter because it's not the thread that we're using. It's just a color stop in the process. So now I lay this one back, and then I right click on the next color in the sequence, click here and here, right click to set it. Then we'll pick up color number 10. I like to go back to the rectangle, although here, I'll show you, and you'll see how bad I am at drawing a square. I could do it by simply, with my run stitch creation tool, click in the corner here, click again, left click here, left click here, left click here, and back to my starting place, left click, then right click. Oh, that's not horrible. Okay, so now I have my block. If we bring back up our backdrop, then we can do something a little bit different. If we wanted to put some stitches in here, all I have to do is select my artwork tool. Oops, select. Oh, never mind. That's not going to work. I'll work on that one. That'll be on a future set. No, I'm really not square. There we go. Okay, so there you have your design created. And all of your stitches filled in. If we dismiss the backdrop, you can see how those go. And you're done with that one. You could come back in here and create, let's say, if I want to go to my triangle tool and create a triangle. Okay, it creates an isosceles triangle. I only know that because my children have had geometry lately in school. If I click on shape and move my points, I can fill them in to the same shape here. And then take and convert that to stitches. If I want to make that block stippling, I just click on that block. And now when I go to stitch it out, that can be stippling. I just need to take each of these patches and convert them into artwork. I can do that with any of my artwork tools up here. The other thing I could do after I've stitched my block is, and I just got rid of the stippling, is I can come into my embellishments and select one of those to fill in this design. So if I go to my flowers, oh, it's becoming pretty, and bring that in, and if I don't want the outline, I can just delete it, and then spread this out to fill in my block. I could measure it precisely, but since they're kind of organic looking, I don't feel the urge to do that. And then I have stitches over the entire block. So, however you want to do it, it is your decorative quilter. Now, let's do one more quickly. Actually, what I'll do, let's bring up another backdrop. And in here, I have a crazy patch pattern. Now on this one, again, it tells me which piece goes where, which really is kind of nice, especially if you're just starting out. So I know that the line between piece 1 and piece 2 is what I need to stitch first. I'm going to do this one a little bit differently. I'm going to create all of my lines first instead of my backdrop, or what I would stitch on the foundation and the batting. So I select my run stitch. I'm on color 1, and I do between piece 1 and piece 2. And click. Then I'm going to change my color, and I find piece 3. So the line between pieces 1 and 2, because these aren't quite as, it's crazy patch, so it's a little different. Let's put it on 3D so you can see it. So I do between piece 3 and piece 1 and 2. So the next one will be piece 4, and this is the stitching line that is between them. So I select a new color and left click, and right click at the end. I have that one. Then piece 5, I'm going to pick up color number 4 and create that. Then pick up color number 5 and go between to piece number 6. So I stitch the line, left click, right click, change my color to color number 6, and do my final piece, which is piece number 7, and click. Now let's change colors again and put a square around this. I'll do our rectangle because this will be a stitching line to hold all those pieces down, so we can go back and decorate them with our cool crazy patch stitches. Now again, this is artwork. You see over here, that's artwork. Let's select it and convert that to stitches. And now, if I dismiss my backdrop, you see I've got my whole block. But I don't have anything that stitches initially on my stabilizer or my stabilizer and batting to tell me where each of these pieces are going to go. But once you've created your whole block, it is very easy to go back and do that. I'm going to select everything by dragging a box around it. I'm going to come up here. I could right click if I wanted to, and I'm going to say copy. Then I'm going to click on paste. So you notice over here they all went together. Then if I combine those, because I've only has the last thing I selected, or the last thing I did selected, so it takes all of those colors and it makes it into one object in one color. And you see here it is right here. It's all together. If I look at it, you see that's all blue. Well, this would actually stitch in my stitching sequence over the top of all of those. So all I have to do to make it stitch first is click it and say, move it to the back. Now if I look at my stitch sequence, I have it going. I stitch my whole design. Oh, and then I've got something else that's that color. Which is my first stitch? I don't want that to be that color, so let me just change color 1 since we got the rest of them in sequence. I'm going to change that to color 8. Whoops, I had them both selected. Let's undo one of my favorite tools in Floriani software. Let me expand my view over here in sequence view. I'm going to select just that last run that we did that was all of the colors, and I'm going to change that to color number 8 so that it separates it from 1 through 7. Now to double check myself, I will do a slow redraw, and here we go. I've got my whole pattern stitching out first on my stabilizer. Then I've got color 1, 2, 3, 4, and my final square. So I know that's going to stitch out just great. And that's how easy it is to do foundation piecing. So whether you put batting in it or not, you quilt it later or you quilt it as you go, it doesn't make a difference. We can also, of course, turn all of these into or lay down crazy patch stitches, but we'll talk about those in a future webinar. If you have any questions on what you've seen this evening, we really appreciate you sending those in to us, and we'll make sure they all get answered. And let's just take the few minutes that we have left, go back and look at our blocks and talk about which other ones could be converted into crazy patch. If you look at this, this is exactly like the one that we did before the crazy patch, only there's 4 pieces to it, and then they're put together. This one, if you can see, you would start in the center and work your way out with each of the diamonds, and then you add diamonds on this side and that side and this one. It's very easy to convert different blocks into piecing in the hoop, and then going back and decorating those with any kind of stitching you want. This one, the first one we did, very simple. Circle blocks and mariner's compass. These work a little bit differently, and actually Mark Garrett's has a great tutorial on doing piecing in the hoop with just part of, let's see, if we got a mariner's compass. Let's look at one of these, and you can see, for example, this one here. Oh, I probably should have. Yeah, I did. Okay, so each one of these quarters of the pie would be a separate piecing in the hoop. You want to start either from the side or the center and see how to figure out how that works. This would be your first patch. Then you would do the ones on either side of it. Then you would do the purple ones. And you certainly want to do stitches around the circle and one around the edge so you'll know where to cut it. Pull these apart. And this is going to be a little trickier because it's not as clear. If I just hold my control key down and select the different patches, then I can separate that from the other ones. And that, oh, I didn't have my other stitch up there. Anyway, ignore that. And I would have, this is what I could do in the hoop. So I could select, I could put several of these in the same hooping. It's just that they won't go together. You'll have to stitch those 2 seams, well actually 3 seams, because you would stitch them here and stitch 2 halves together, and then you'd stitch, or 2 quarters together, then the halves to each other. And you would have a perfect mariner's compass, and it'd be very easy to get your points to meet. Let's look at some of our other foundation piecing blocks that actually come in the software. You have all down here with your foundation blocks. All of these, of course, would be easy. Not all of them can be done in one hooping, but a lot of them can, or in one foundation. You may have to sew them together, like this one you would. Your basket would split right across the center. Kaleidoscope blocks is another one. You could certainly split this kaleidoscope in half and do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pieces. Oh, 7, 8. The problem is you could go all the way around the circle, but when you get to here, that just won't match up right. So you need to split it so you can stitch it. So lots and lots of different options within just the patterns in that are available in our catalog library. Now, of course, when you get a pattern for, I don't know, I did a bug jar quilt one time that was very fun to do the animals or the critters that went around it, a snail and spider webs and different things. You can certainly scan those or take a photograph of it. Just make sure that when you bring it up that you size it to the size that it needs to be. Then it's very simple to put your blocks together and just go to town with foundation piecing. I'd like to thank you all for your time tonight. It was a pleasure spending the last hour with you, and I hope you learned a lot, and let us know if you have any questions. And we will see you next time. Next month we'll have another webinar, Thank you very much, and good night.